Welcome everybody. Here to talk about the news about Yao Ming yesterday. My right is Dr. Lowe, team doctor for the Rockets, and I think mostly we'll just take questions.
Well, just the significance of what they found with this stress fracture and any long-term thoughts.
Well, you know, so you bring up, so it's a medial malleolus stress fracture. That's on the inside part of the ankle. Okay, and so like any other stress fracture, it has to heal. And so, you know, we can get into some of the treatment stuff, but I think the issue right now is it needs to be treated appropriately, and you let it heal, and it's something that should.
If you treat it, it heals. Whether you treat it surgically, rehab, it goes through everything. Should he choose to play again, what is the likelihood that he can play basketball without future stress fractures?
Well, you know, I think that's a question that doesn't have an answer, probably, you know. So this, is a stress fracture, as you guys know, has to heal. Whether, or, you know, and the thing about this is different is this is related to an injury fairly recently, okay? And so I think that's a question that doesn't have an answer. You know,
well, what do you say again? I'm sure he's going to want to know the answer to
that. We say, hey, yeah, you know, this needs to get treated, and if we're talking to, you know, the foot and ankle guys about getting it treated and what the appropriate course is with that. So it needs to get treated, it needs to heal, it needs to be, rehabbed right, brought back right, all those things. But is this something that I would say, hey, you got no chance of ever playing again? No, absolutely.
Walt, is this year out?
I think this is a season-ending injury.
What kind? When you talk about begin treatment, what kind of treatment does he go? Do you definitely do surgery, or you don't have to do that?
Well, you know, the usual case with this would be surgery. Okay, so you know, it's a stress fracture, and it's in a location that the typical course is that. Has that decision been made yet? No, but the usual medial malleolus stress fracture is one that you do fix.
Is it more of the screws and bolts and all that stuff?
Daryl, is there any relief you can get from the league now with this new event?
There are different options with the league, both in terms of trade and signing exceptions, and then also, sort of cap relief. We're examining those. We haven't finalized the course of action or talked to the league about that. But,
how important are those possibilities?
Those can help if you get them. Those are things you generally apply for, and then the league chooses to grant. A lot of the circumstances around this injury gives us a good chance at those options.
For this year?
For this year, yeah.
Now, did this injury have something to do with the broken foot from last year?
Well, you know, last year was an osteotomy of his foot to make it flatter and to help distribute the stresses more. But I think you have to say, yeah, this is related to, you know, the previous issues Yao has had with his foot and the surgeries he's had.
How is it?
Well, it's just it is a transfer of stresses, you know, that this big osteotomy moved his heel bone around to shift him into a different place, and now his body has to take those new stresses to a new area. Okay? And so anytime we do something to change it, you see something else come from it. I don't see any way to say it's not related to it.
So then, having said that, does that increase the likelihood of future stress fractures on the left side?
Well, you know, like I said, when you look at the course of Yao's career, stress fractures have been a part of his foot. And so to say he's not at a risk to continue to have stress fractures would be crazy. So he is at a continued risk. The new position of his foot should unload his foot and make those stresses lower. So we still have this injury back in Washington as a part of this injury to factor into.
If this is treated surgically, is it also a restructuring?
No. So this is a fracture that's not displaced, so it's still anatomically located. And it's one to provide fixation so it won't displace, and at the same time create a healing response inside that fracture so it will heal. So it's not a corrective osteotomy or moving his foot around, it's just fixing it where it is.
Well, on a level of, I don't know if it's the right kind of wording or not, a level of stress fractures where it's at right now, if you have the high end and the low end, based on 1 to 10, is high end bad, not so bad, how do you, or is it no word for that?
Well, I don't think there's any word for it. I think no one's happy Yao has any stress fracture, for sure. At the same time, if you ask me, is this better or worse than having another navicular stress fracture, I'd say I'd rather have this one than that one. And so, and it's stress fractures that guys have come back from in this league too, so.
This is.
Yeah.
This one was just revealed in the MRI the other day. So was it there when he suffered the injury in Washington, or did it kind of manifest?
No, I think it's kind of manifested itself since then. So this was sort of an ankle sprain with bone bruising, it sounds like, with MRI done up in Indianapolis, brought back here, and then really not progressing from a rehab standpoint, which stimulated the new studies done yesterday that revealed a stress fracture.
Did the bruise hide it at all until it cleared up? You saw it?
It should not. And so a bony bruise is basically fluid or edema in bone. Okay, and you can see fracture lines in that edema, and you see those all the time with fractures. So I don't think it's something that fluid in the bone obscured the fracture at all. You would see that.
So what caused it? Any idea?
No.
Does that mean, though, your answer to Fran and Mark, that it happened sometime between the two MRIs?
Well, it manifests itself as a stress fracture, so it progressed to the point between the two MRIs, yes.
But there might have been an injury prior to...
Well, the injury was in Washington.
Okay,
correct?
so if we were to say, when did Yao get hurt, even though this is not on the previous MRIs, your answer would still be November 10th?
Yeah, I think so.
Daryl, at this point, are you starting to get concerned that Yao will never really be able to contribute for you again?
Well, I think, as the doctor said, this is an injury that players come back from. We still are gathering data to know, just the likelihood and the prognosis. I think that's something we're still learning. I think it's too soon to know, where we go from here exactly with Yao Ming.
Well, along those lines, you planned for certain things. You didn't know when he was going to come back. Now you know he's not going to come back.
This season.
This season. How does it affect your plans this season, or even beyond?
Well, I think, overall, we've been preparing for this possibility, obviously, as Doctor said, and we've obviously talked to Dr. Lowe, Dr. Clanton, all the folks, Dr. Alcuzzi, close to working with Yao Ming. And we obviously knew he was prone to, possible future injuries. So as you can tell in our preparation, our signings, our trades, our draft picks, we've prepared the team to sort of work with Yao Ming and work without, both at a player level and also a mentality level. I think we've got a very resilient group. They've been able to fight through injuries, have had winning seasons without both Yao Ming and Tracy McGrady last year. This year, obviously, we're going to have Yao Ming for mostly not this whole season. We feel like we've got a resilient group. We look for guys who can fight through injuries, and we feel like we've got a young team that, each day they play, they're better than the day before. Not a team that's declining, but a team that's improving.
Is there, you said that he hasn't decided on the surgery yet. Is there any way it would heal without having surgery?
I think sure. I mean, their stress fractures do heal with prolonged periods of unloading and, crutches and non-weight bearing and those kind of things, whether that's, and so I think those things all have to be debated with Yao and sort of go through the whole process like you would with anybody that needs or should have a surgical procedure. And so I'd say, yes, there's a potential it would, but the likelihood is that fixing it would not only lead to a more certainty in it healing and a much quicker.
What's time of the essence, Walter?
No,
we could take the time and second, third opinions.
Right. Yeah. No. This definitely has no acute issues associated with it. So I think there's plenty of time to get all the bright minds of foot and ankle in the country together and look at it and talk to Yao and come up with a course of treatment that his doctors and Yao both believe in.
Doctor, what's the suggestion? What's your suggestion? Because last time Yao take like a month's rest. It seems it doesn't heal. I mean, the fracture get wider even. So
right.
This time, do you suggest him to take? I mean, one more month to?
Right now, I'm not the foot and ankle guy,
right.
Which is okay. But at the same time, I do think that the suggestion of the usual course of action for this particular stress fracture, which is a vertical fracture through the medial malleolus, is that it be fixed. I think that's the smartest course of action.
What is the normal time frame for recovery after surgery?
I put it in one of those 4 to 6 month recoveries, and so for a stress fracture to heal completely should take in that 3 to 4 month period, and then there's as you saw with some other things in Yao, a very slowly progressive return to higher and higher levels of loading, and so that's for sure a 4 to 6 month window.
So 4 to 6 months to begin active
After
rehab.
it's fixed, right,
To
after
begin
it's
active.
fixed.
And then,
right.
what would, for a guy like Yao, who will have then been off the court for 7 months, 8 months, what would the rehab be once he begins an active rehab?
You know, in the foot, there's not a lot of rehab. It's range of motion, strengthening of the tendons that surround it. So it's not as complicated of a rehab as a knee or a shoulder or some of the things you guys see fairly frequently out there. What has to happen in the foot is healing, because the foot's skin, bones, and tendons, okay? So it doesn't have a lot of muscle surrounding it, those things that lead to a more vibrant human anatomy. So you have to let it heal, you have to keep the motion, you have to get the swelling down, and then after the healing's there, you have to progressively load. And so that means, you know, you're partial weight bearing, then you're normal weight bearing. The same process you guys have seen him go through before. And so there's not a cookbook protocol that says after this fracture we do this on day 1, day 2, day 3. It is a very progressive loading. And the bigger the guys are, okay, and the more issues there have been with stress fractures or related issues, the slower you would go in that progressive loading process.
Which last time was about 3 to 4 months.
Right.
So that's about what you'd expect?
Probably.
So 4 to 6, and then
Right.
3 to 4.
Right.
Well, could this be considered, would you expect it during this complicated process of trying to get a big guy like this on his feet, these setbacks shouldn't be all that surprising? That some of these things, you're moving stress from one part of the body to the other part of the foot to the other, that maybe some of these things are going to happen? Do you
Yeah.
figure it all out or no?
You know, I think that's probably a fair statement, you know, and I think that's been there all along in the discussions with Yao and everything coming, is that we got to watch what happens and take it one step at a time as you go. So I think that's a valid comment.
Daryl, you mentioned preparing the team with and without Yao, kind of doing that simultaneously. How do you move forward? Is it easier knowing that you don't have to worry about one half of that whole process and you just prepare yourself for what's going on without him being a part of it?
For this season, I think until we learn more, you know, we still see Yao Ming as, you know, a potential future part of the team. We need to continue to talk to the doctors and see where that goes. But, you know, obviously, you know, Yao Ming's an all-star center. If you look throughout the league, there's not many of them. So if it looks like there's a good prognosis here, and we're still learning how good that prognosis will be, you know, for sure we're going to look at Yao Ming, you know, past the season.
How is Yao's spirit after being told this news? Is he ready to go, or are he waiting to make a decision?
Yeah, I think he's appropriately taking a step back and saying, I want to hear all of my options, all the facts. That hasn't happened yet. Doctors like Dr. Lowe, Dr. Okuzzi, Dr. Clanton are all still conferring, and he'll get multiple opinions before he takes a course of action. I think he's obviously taking the news hard, just like we are, just like Rockets fans, just like everybody. I think those who know Yao Ming, and I know you're one of them, and many in this room, you know, he has a when there's tough news, he sort of cracks jokes and things like that. And he was doing that yesterday, so you know, he was in good spirits. I think obviously when he's not around others, I'm sure it's pretty tough to digest this news. How much he's been off the court and how much he cares about his teammates and the fans and the Rockets, you know, probably is really tough for him.
Daryl, could you quantify or how big a setback it is for the organization that you've not had Yao for a long time and may not have him for an even longer time?
Well, I think we've been, as we said, preparing for this as well as you can, and for as well as, you know, I think you need great players in this league to win. We've got a lot of players we believe in on this team. Yao Ming's very, very unique. You know, just, you know, there's no Yao Ming store we can go to get another one with his abilities. So it's definitely a setback. It's definitely a setback that we don't have him this season. We felt like this season, where we could make this a special season, was Yao Ming comes back, you know, people step up on our team, maybe there's a move that's made, and we felt like we could really make some noise this season. We still feel like we're a team that can make the playoffs this season. We feel like we're fighting with about 4 or 5 other teams for maybe the 7-8 seed this season. And you know, I know our guys in the locker room aren't writing the season off. I know I'm not. I know Coach Alman isn't. We still think this can be a great season, but is it? You know, we're obviously the news yesterday was negative, it wasn't positive.